it's over. Yeah, that might count, I guess. Technically, we worked with Mephisto. Mephisto helped us. I wouldn't say that we necessarily worked with him. Well, I don't know. I feel like you're splitting hairs there. Mephisto assisted the hero in getting to him. We then decided, based off his manipulation, what to do. But we don't work with Mephisto to take down Lilith directly. Mephisto grants us access to him, hoping that we will do a thing which he wants. Yo, Grims, thank you very much for the 7 months. Boo Boo, I appreciate you. Thank you. I would work with Mephisto if given the opportunity. I would work with Bale, I think. There were interactions where we were helped by and non-aggressive towards him. I would agree with that statement. Stinger's really good. Uh, 40 cost. This wasn't really a spamming skill. Good lucky hit chance. Again, very strong for lucky hit chance because it will do initial damage and then apply poison. Its enhancement says that 50% of its base damage is applied as poisoning instead. Oh no, in addition, I assume? Advantageous says, if it strikes a vulnerable enemy, it heals you. If you're a healthy, it makes enemies vulnerable. Amazing tool. Rampant says that Stinger deals 5% increased direct damage to elites for every nearby poisoned enemy. Does anybody ever use that? Do you ever use this effect? Yeah, like it helps to slightly... The idea of it is that in a fight with an elite in trash, you decrease the amount of time between the trash dying and the elite dying by increasing the rate at which the elite dies. And then does nothing against bosses. Like, does physically nothing. Well, I guess it's a 5%, it's a 1.05. Because they will count as a nearby poisoned enemy to themselves, typically. I think you always use advantageous. Advantageous says you have 100% uptime on vulnerable. And it heals you for 10%. Yeah. Okay. Stinger. Core Centipede. Base skills damage is very high. While being harder to spam. Feels like a pseudo cooldown skill at low levels. Enhancement activates poisoning system while drastically increasing damage output. Advantageous is just goated. 10% max life healing and 30% uptime of vulnerable application. Rampant upgrade seems poorly tuned and does near 0 to increase single target damage. Only downside is needing a poison AoE activator to get the most out of it for density clearing, but should work exceptionally well in Infernal Horde and for clearing through the pit. Do I have questions? Not really. High resource cost and decent mid, I guess is a better way. Mid lucky hit chance. Ten out of 10 core? Insane package of damage, survivability, and utility. I would argue probably the best core skill. Like the damage is insane. Resource cost reduction will work really effectively on it. Seems hard to spam in the early game, but maybe in the late game you can. Permanent uptime of vulnerable, permanent max healing. Applies a huge amount of poison damage, has a huge base coefficient. Like this skill is probably insane as it's currently packaged. Is nearby a keyword? Nearby, as far as we currently understand, is not a keyword, but it certainly defines some radius that is further away than close. Just started working on Blight build. I love Blight. Blight was a really fun time. If I were to like seriously hop back into the season to like play a build, it would be Blight right now. I love Blight. You can be good in content like the pit. Yeah, for sure. But you already have an AoE damage component to it. It already does pretty good damage. And you can be permanently 10% max life healing, as well as permanent uptime on vulnerable, or doing slightly more damage to the elite. It seems like an easy kind of package to me. Do I enjoy Schluters? Which is the shorthand of looter shooter? Yeah, I like Borderlands. I really liked Hellgate London. when that game came out back in the day, like the first Schluter. I think you should consider it the first Schluter, if I'm not mistaken. Just trying to justify it, sure. So Vigorous builds into Velocity, right? Yeah. So then we need a thing for passives. Follow through. Your basic skills deal up to 30% increased damage. Double this bonus for third attacks. So they get 1.6 multi on their third attack. That means that the staff that gives you always third attacks is a permanent 1.6 on them as well. Sure. Follow through. Powerful with good synergy on the unique staff. Not much to say there, really. It's just like good. Vigorous casting a score kill increases all vigor generation by 15%. Vigorous seems good for leveling, but ultimately is a 1 point requirement. Velocity. Velocity seems fantastic for leveling and relevant in the end game. Question: does this modify your base resource or second stat? Okay. Focus skills. Whew. Be good, Yama. Have I tried First Descendant? I do not know what that game is. Have a good night. Focus skills. Now we start getting into cooldown skills that kind of bring along with them some very interesting power. Oh, my brain. Oh, my brain wants this information, but it also doesn't want to do this. Vortex creates a cyclone that pulls in enemies inward, followed by a crushing downdraft that deals damage to them. This just kind of like pulled people into you, then dealt damage around you. 12-second cooldown, lucky a chance of 21% because it's an AoE skill. Enhancement. Casting Vortex increases the damage of the next skill cast by 1.2. Seems very cool, very combo heavy. It's also one of those things where, like, you're using Jaguar that says every fourth attack deals damage equal to 100% of the 4 attacks. So it's interesting in that, like, because Vortex doesn't do a lot of damage itself, but hits a large AoE, you might be able to set up like a really big ulti use on a single target after Vortex, if it counts the damage dealt to each target in the AoE. That's actually very interesting, and really like thought about that. That keeps turning off for some reason every time I restart my computer. Huh. Interesting. While you have an active barrier, your Vortex does 3x damage and knocks enemies down. Okay. So now it does... That might act like... So if there is a squish to damage, like if there is... This thing doing 105 damage is actually like pretty strong. Or critical strikes with Vortex reduce its cooldown. Another thing that's just like great for AoE clear, but like bad for single target. The interesting part though, because you could weave this into casting, which means that you could basically say like, weave this in for a 1.2 multi once every 12 seconds. And now, I guess it's once every 11 seconds before cooldown reduction. And the question is, would you really, I mean, like, would you spam this in combat? Realistically, would you spam this in combat? Would you spend the time to do it? Just for the next skill to get a 1.2? Or would you mostly ignore using it? It throws you off by like basically like half an animation. So when you set up something that does damage over time, it becomes a lot more valuable. So like an ult, right? Like the Centipede or the Jaguar. It becomes a lot more valuable. I automatically cast Vortex where you cast Soar. Sure. But are you casting Soar mid-combat? Like it's an aspect that slot that says when you cast Soar, gain a 1.2 on your next damage cast. Is that good enough? I don't think it is. Because here's the thing. All builds and everything that you do is good at clearing trash and is good at killing AoE. Like, killing AoE monsters is basically free. There are just builds that are good at doing it faster. I think realistically in the game right now, until we see what raids do, and a little bit better what Infernal Hordes do, at least from the Necromancer perspective, the only thing that you need to worry about is figuring out how to do single target damage. So that like very much colors how I appreciate things. It's not entirely fair to the idea of balance and how to evaluate these things. But the reason why that question is even relevant, Jesper, thank you so much for the tier 2 sub for the past 4 months, dude. That's insane. What are you spending your money like that for? Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you. Now, what is interesting is that the soar aspect does mean that Vortex can critically strike to reduce cooldown, and the skill itself can critically strike to reduce cooldown. So as long as you've put the skill on cooldown, you can double dip on the cooldown reduction of it, which is like cool, but then the question again becomes like, how valuable is the skill? No, I like this, Nick. It helps it helps. This is like bouncing ideas. Less so, whenever I'm asking these types of questions, it's less so like, hey, you defend this point, and it's more so me talking through what the question is. Vortex is very cool on paper. I think that ultimately it's for like a speed farming build, which is fine. And it has some cool synergy with ults as like a big multi for it. It also naturally synergizes with ultis in that they tend to do damage within a restricted area. So pulling monsters into that area makes them better. It's like a big ulti, activator. Shit lucky hit chance. Still better than Blood Surge KEKW. Now the question becomes, do you want measured Vortex for the stagger potential and bosses, and like the decent damage output from the skill so you don't feel bad using it, versus the cooldown reduction, which on a single target is pretty shit? Your evade is now Soar, and then Soar can cast Vortex when you evade. But there, then you don't care about the cooldown reduction of it, and you would just want the damage from it, because it would actually be outputting damage if you could spam it. But is evading faster... You just have to activate barrier, which is very easy to do. So reducing its cooldown with critical strikes from Vortex is like insane for speed farming, right? Okay. Vortex. Eagle. Base skill. Pixel. Pulls are typically very strong. Seems incredibly synergistic with an alt spam build where the alts tend to do damage in a restricted area. Enhancement seems hard to rotate in for a core skill build, but it's nice. And again, seemingly synergizes with a powerful alt build for the 20% damage to go a lot further. Measured upgrade seems like the go-to for single target. What just happened? Needs a barrier gen, probably through Gorilla main spirit system for what are the other ones called? Replenishing seems to be insane for speed farming and density clear. Mid cooldown length. Low lucky hit chance. Question mark out of 10. Focus. Hard to say how valuable these will be on most Spiritborn builds. Potentially cracked. Or doesn't do enough. I need to also put this. Also adds CC stagger functionality. Okay, that's Vortex. It's hard to say. It seems like it has potential, but it might also just kind of be like a dud for a while. Could we get Telestomp out of it? My question is, how does Thunder Strike? Thunder Spike work with it? So Thunder Spike says when you evade, you attack with Thunder Spike along the way, make enemies vulnerable. Then the boots say when you soar, or evade is now soar. So you'll soar, except soar you stop existing. Soar is more like a teleport than a travel. So will it be like a metamorphosis kind of deal? Or you'll do the vulnerable attack application throughout the area, but you'll end up over there. Then that casts Vortex. Is that a... Soar casts Vortex at its landing location. That makes sense. Vortex comes down, resets its cooldown. Attack reduces evade. But then you're getting your Thunder Spike, your Soar, and your Vortex lucky hit all together, which might actually be like pretty cracked. Oh man, this class is too good. They made the class too good. It does too much stuff. It does so much. And like, we haven't even really looked at aspects yet. Not really. Soar. Soar is insane. Flying to the air. I wish they just called it fly. Because, like, the big burb is absolutely just Lightning Articuno. Or just Blue Zapdos. And then Soar is just fly. I think it's ridiculous that we have to keep pretending like this isn't just a big Pokemon. Creating a cloud which makes enemies at your location vulnerable for 5 seconds before you crash down upon them. Insane lucky hit chance. I don't understand why this has such good lucky hit chance, honestly. Like, the number seems wrong. Like, this can't be this number. It's an it's a targeted AoE that has this much lucky hit chance. Like, sure, it has a cooldown, but like, what the fuck are we doing? Then add Indarials to that. Can Indarials trigger from all of them? Yes. Yeah. They're all individual skill applications. Will schedule flights on Zapdos Airlines. Zapdos is the GOAT. Zapdos was my favorite from the 3 legendary birds. But then again, I also like Jolteon, so now I have a type. Do I think casuals will be turned off? I think that this is definitely a higher APM class, which does turn it off for some people. But that has less to do with like game knowledge and more to do with like not wanting to think that much while playing the game. The enhancement says next hit against an enemy struck by Soar is guaranteed to critically strike. If Soar hits no enemies, you gain movement speed. Sure. There's enough things in here about giving you conditional critical strike chance that makes me wonder, or it makes me think that we're moving away from expecting to reach 100% crit chance on your build without conditions. Oh, I was not Team Instinct. I was not Team Instinct. I was a big Valor boy. Big gym holding Valor boys. The fucking tryhards of Pokemon Go. Noxo, thank you for the follow. Eevee is still the best Pokemon. Eevee is a phenomenal Pokemon. Eevee is Panda's favorite Pokemon. Of course I was Valor. Are you serious? Of course I was. I would just walk around, go help people fight gyms. Big bro Valor. I tried real hard in Pokemon Go. I got like very serious into holding down like as many gyms as I possibly could in my area. I was like on the Discord and would like sync up with other people to coordinate holding down gyms. My spot stayed yellow. Bruh. Fucking what's your lineup? Fucking show me the lineup. You should have seen my fucking Alakazam, dude. You should have seen my Alakazam. God, Pokemon Go is a great game. Sora makes you unstoppable. That's fine. Sora's Cloud remains around you for 7 seconds after landing and continues to make enemies vulnerable. That seems like the obvious choice. Sora makes you unstoppable is cool. Do we care about unstoppable? Tibalt's, but do we care about unstoppable for other reasons? Oh, I did. How many? Hold on. Hello? Can we talk about this ad? Hello? It's just like on the... What's happening here? This is... What's... Hey, D4 Builds, what are we doing here, boss? Okay. Oh, that's wild, huh? Hold on. So before they load, if I go to skill tree? No. Huh. What was going on there? Just a bug, sure. How does this indicate... Am I misunderstanding the functionality here? HelloFresh? Yes, HelloFresh is the sponsor of our stream for this month. Shoutouts to HelloFresh. I love HelloFresh, unironically. I'm really excited. We're going to be doing a live stream of me cooking one of the meals. Actually, very excited to try that. And if you use my discount code, my promo code, at checkout, you'll get 10 free meals and a free appetizer in every box for life. You will always be able to get a free appetizer with every single meal. We went with the like ricotta cheese and hot honey toasted croquettes. Very excited. Oh, okay, so you know what it is? You know what it is? Since this isn't data driven, these are all probably added by hand, and it's not able to match up with the data, which is what the search function is probably tied to. Probably not actually just tied to words existing here, but instead these things having data tied to them. Oh, wait, no, you can kind of see it. No, it is showing up. It's just really, really hard to see. Huh. Yeah, okay, yeah, so it's just hard to see. Hmm. So they do have multiple sources of gaining Unstoppable. It's typically through Monkey. They have one way here and one way here. That's, wow, they get more than one way to gain Unstoppable? Wow, they have 4 different ways to gain Unstoppable? Wow. Fuck this class. Okay. So the idea is that the Unstoppable here is not your only option, so you're not going to be hard forced into using the skill. Every build is probably going to use Soar. Yo, what up, Raven? How's Deep Dive going? We've made it to focus skills. We have thoughts on a lot of stuff. And we're trying to just understand every single thing about this build, about this class, that we can currently. So you don't need Unstoppable. It does mobility, it does vulnerable, it does movement speed. Shores up crit chance. Has insane lucky hit chance. It's just great. Soar. Eagle focus. Base skill is number 1 mobility option with built in vulnerable and decent damage with insane lucky hit chance. This skill does everything and will be on every build. Acacia, thank you very much for the follow. enhancement. Movement speed is goated, while the insistence of having conditional crit chance makes it seem like the doves do not assume this class will reach 100% crit chance based off gear, skills, paragon, etc. If that's the case, this is a massive source of it. Measured upgrade is one of 4 ways the class can become unstoppable. Definitely not mad about Necro's single option. And makes this feel less required of an option for the class as a whole. Replenish upgrade seems goated with a huge vulnerable proc window. Will probably be auto-used. For builds that don't gain it elsewhere. Although, do I really think that builds will need that much vulnerable proc? Maybe. Good luck on the rest of the stream. Hey, Frosty, be good, homie. Mid cooldown length, insane lucky hit chance in an AoE. 10 out of 10 focus. Every build will use this in its current form. Expect a nerf. Expect a nerf prior to release. Or it'll just be goated and they just won't care. Using vital strikes. Oh, right. Yeah, because this eats Vuln. The interesting part about this, it's like basically what it just says is you get a 2x multi. That's basically what Vital Strike says, right? As long as you can overlap Vuln. Do I think that's actually like good enough? I guess it has to be. I also expect that the lucky hit chance from Soar permanently applying vulnerable within its area, which is very similar to Bone Prison, will have a weird lucky hit interaction at first. Hopefully that's already been picked up on. I wonder if there would be any value in me preemptively setting off potential bug interactions. It's just because, like, we've seen these things in the past, right? So this one says the cloud remains around you for 7 seconds and continues to make enemies vulnerable, meaning it will reapply vulnerability. The way that it reapplied vulnerability through Bone Prison was by shooting out, like, server tick rate missiles, which apply vulnerable, which carried with it 100% lucky hit chance. And Bone Prison wasn't meant to have a lucky hit chance, but Soar is meant to have lucky hit chance. So these could just be missiles which don't deal damage to be able to apply this effect, meaning that we should expect it to carry the lucky hit chance of it, which it probably shouldn't be because it's not doing damage, unless they've fixed it. Vital Strikes doesn't remove a Cursed Touch. Well, a Cursed Touch says that enemies that have the curse are vulnerable. So you would not, it's not that applying the curse makes an enemy vulnerable. It is, if you have the curse, they are vulnerable. So this does not, that makes complete sense to me. So all of a sudden, this aspect for your build says double your damage and not need to apply vulnerable from any other sources, which is kind of powerful. But then that question becomes, if you can get that just from Soar, but Soar has a long cooldown, right? But your evade becomes Soar. So now you just re-Soar whenever you would run out of vuln. Have we become smarter? I like to think so. We've made it halfway into the focus skills. Alright, next focus skill. 20-second cooldown. Focus Incarnate. What the fuck does Incarnate mean? What does Incarnate mean? They haven't added it as a search. Guess we'll read something later. What happens if you add Metamorphosis? So typically when you add Metamorphosis, it puts the effects together. But I can't tell you what that means, really. The thing with Soar, though, so Soar says that the cloud applies vulnerable for 5 seconds. But then this comes down. And this lasts for 7 seconds after. So no, I do not believe that you have 12 seconds of vulnerability. In fact, I think that this overrides this. Like, I think that this will run out during the time that this is up. I actually think you only get 7 seconds of vuln. If you mean metamorphosis with the evade soar boots, you cannot do that. Carp, that is a very strong statement on mechanics. What are we backing that up with? What up, Koopa? The interesting part about Soar... Also, Amulet. You can put mobility aspects on your Amulet. The interesting part about Soar is that with this key passive, the way that it works is you initiate Soar. You make targets vulnerable. You then land and deal damage immediately, eating the vulnerable and doubling the damage from Soar. So in fact, if you don't have this one with Soar, Soar basically just says do nothing. Buckeye fixed his name. Let's go, baby. What's going on, Boo Boo? How are you? We're looking at the new class. We just got back from Seattle. We got to go play this class live. So now we're actually looking at it because I played this class for like close to like 8 hours. I did not have time to really read everything at this level because I just had to like be playing it and doing stuff. Because we've now been going at this for like 3 hours. This is how long it takes me to read stuff because I really like to like sit down and think about the things. We haven't even gotten to aspects yet. So oddly enough, I kind of just had to start playing. With that key passive, Soar doesn't even really apply vulnerable to the target because it applies vulnerable in the cloud and then you land dealing damage, which then eats it. It's interesting. You left and I got into Diablo? Hey man, it's a good game. That's interesting. Maybe I should like note that here. What's the key passive name? Vital Strikes. With Vital Strikes, key passive, and without replenish upgrade, Soar effectively doesn't apply vulnerable to targets since the vuln is applied before the damage of the skill is applied, which would immediately eat the vuln proc. Okay, Ravager. Passive, minimum ferocity increased by 2, meaning you can get up to 6 ferocity. Meaning you can get up to 7 ferocity, which is 35% attack speed in total. Metamorphosis, but another question about how it figures in lucky hit chance. I'm going to test this at home. So Metamorphosis, the effect, is not meant to have a lucky hit chance. In fact, I thought that they fixed that. But that doesn't really break my brain further. Metamorphosis is not meant to have lucky hit chance. And even if it does, it's just its own damage instance, which individually works with lucky hit chance procs and doesn't change how other things do. I think it has a lucky hit chance of teleport. So that is... Okay, so we're actually asking like 2 different questions. Metamorphosis modifies your evade. Your evade can be modified into a skill use. Because the entirety of your evade is a skill use, the damage component of Metamorphosis should be carrying the same lucky hit chance as the skill. That's not really the Metamorphosis carrying that's not really Metamorphosis with lucky hit chance, as so much as your skill is doing damage, because Metamorphosis adds a damage component to your skill if it doesn't otherwise already have it. So it should carry the lucky hit chance of the skill which modifies your evade. So it should carry Soar's lucky hit chance. And you could do a secondary instance of Thunder Spike's lucky hit chance. The reason why it's melting on Teleport is because Teleport normally only does damage when it lands, but instead is now dealing damage to all targets in between where you teleport from and where you teleport to. I believe what is happening there. Yeah, that's all I got. Endurials is either like completely cracked on this class or is just kind of like nice to have. Because you already have so many applications of AoE poison damage, but you also really like applying AoE poison damage. But there is probably like a Soar Evade speed farming build with Andariels, just as like a base concept, for sure. That's one of the things that's a lot harder for me to really envision, just because I'm coming from the Necromancer where like we don't do any of that. We don't do any of that, and it kind of doesn't matter. Like our best tool is Bone Spear and Blight, and Bone Spear wouldn't want to use it, and Blight can use it, but then you're giving up a bunch of survivability or just straight up damage. Although after the Wither cap, you won't care as much about intelligence on your helmet. That's a whole other discussion. Ravager. Passive, minimum ferocity is increased by 2, so we're up to 6 stacks of ferocity, which is 30% attack speed, plus 1 from the spirit is 7, so it's 35% attack speed. Active, unleash a roar, causing all your attacks to trigger additional strikes. They have all these things about like they do additional things, but we haven't really defined what strikes are. Like, strikes are not a term in the game currently. but are very much a term on the Spiritborn. It's Ferocity, and what's the other one? The damage reduction one? Resilience? What is it called? Resolve. Like, strikes is not a word in the game, but strikes is here. So Ravage applies a bleed. And that bleed then has a lucky hit chance component. What does this skill having a lucky hit chance component mean? It's clearly for the bleed that is activated from Ravager. So Ravager says when you attack, Ravager triggers. Ravager is insane. Okay. The damage from the Ravager is a proc of the skill, which carries its lucky hit chance of 31%. What a wild number. Ravager's duration is extended by 2 seconds per kill while active. This bonus is reduced by a quarter of a second each kill to a minimum of 0.5 seconds. That seems unnecessarily complicated. But I get it. While Ravager is active, the first upgrade measured, while Ravager is active, your core skills instantly dash. That's sick. And all Vigor gen is increased by 30%. .3 multi on all of your essence per second. Or Ravager passively stockpiles any healing you receive. What? What? Ravager passively stockpiles any healing you receive up to 40 stacks. So each time I would heal, I get a stack of Ravager. While active, Ravager spends stacks to strike elite enemies. Up to 4 additional times. And do we assume that you can't stockpile stacks while it's active? Did anybody use this? Did anybody see anybody use this? I did not use this. Did anybody see anybody use this? Because whether or not you continue to stockpile stacks, well, so casting a gorilla skill is what deals damage. This is not casting a skill. So this should not work with Monkey Thorns at all. So reason why I feel like this doesn't, it says Ravager passively stockpiles any healing you receive up to 40 stacks. While active, comma, Ravager spends stacks to strike elite enemies. The verbiage here says to me, once it is activated, Ravager's functionality is spend stacks to strike elite enemies. And I would not assume that it would continue to do this because it is not passive. Life per second is not considered healing, correct? Nope. Life per second is basically a regeneration, which is not the same as an effect replenish, like instantaneously. Healing is the instantaneous replenishment of life. I believe Life Leech is healing. If this stacks while it's active, this seems pretty crazy. Because you just permanently have a 300% damage over time application with potentially massive layered lucky hit chance. Pretty sure Endarils doesn't trigger it? I would believe that. I do not know. I've never owned an Endarils. Yo, what up, Atoka? We are 30% of the way through reading the article to like sit down with each skill and basically ask the question, how does this function and what should we expect it to do? There's one skill in the game currently that is passive and active. Which skill is that? What class? Is it Barb? It's probably fucking Barb. Or Rogue. It's probably Rogue. This is your little, is that a, what am I looking at? Am I looking at a beagle? What am I looking at? What's this little guy? Druid cyclone armor. Name's Chai. I love that. I love this for you. So I see the comparison. My gut is telling me it works differently, but I have no reason to believe that. Oh, that's a... Oh. Oh, yeah. Does it work for overhealing? Strikes, thank you for the follow. Because you actually cannot overheal unless you have an effect which says when you overheal. Not currently interested in the Spiritborn. Have your sights set on Season 5. I think that's fine. There's nothing else for me to talk about for Season 5. Like, I can't do anything more with Season 5 right now. And I've mostly finished playing the season. Like, what can we talk about? Well, it's the unknown. Just the Spiritborn, right? Ravager has a lot of questions. Okay, so let's just start writing about Ravager. Base skill increasing ferocity stacks is very powerful. And the added bonus of layering dot with decent lucky hit chance seems strong for activating different systems. Enhancement. It's also a really long cooldown for Thrash. I love you're very, very weak. I'm glad to hear that, Day. Calling it a druid clone. Yeah, it's like people heard the word animal and they're like, this is a druid. I'm like, no, it's not. It's nothing like the druid in any way, shape, or form, even vaguely, remotely close. They just both say animal. It's when they talk to, yeah, so like, yeah, they both say the word spirit for sure. You know, yeah. But then like people saw it and they're like, this is just strictly better druid. I'm like, but it's, you can see it's functionally nothing like the druid though, right? Like you could see that, right? Like, because you could see it with your eyeballs. You can use your eyeballs to see it. The enhancement, I mean, the enhancement is cool. it does nothing for single target, obviously. So, great for... Seems kind of like a nothing burger outside of Infernal Hordes or game modes where there's... it doesn't seem like a nothing burger. It seems great for a content type we don't necessarily currently have. Or... is that also... So here's the thing that I want to say. Here's the thing that I want to say. This doesn't seem strong enough. It doesn't seem strong enough for builds that would want to use it, where the place where it is best used is in Infernal Hordes in the pit before the boss, or if the Citadel has consistent streams of non-elite monsters that have like perpetual... so like the enhancement says increase the duration whenever you kill something, but you have to be killing stuff the entire time. But what it does is it makes it so that your attacks trigger additional damage over time against enemies hit by them. So in the case against an elite monster or a boss, you would need to consistently have trash around them to maintain the uptime on the active. In those circumstances, what you gain is either resource gen or increased bleed damage for the price of a skill slot. Where you could have a stronger option that would increase your damage against that elite or boss. Look at this aspect that changes this skill specifically. Ravager no longer has a duration and instead drains vigor. This does nothing if you can't heal and gain stacks. Right? Because the moment that you put on this, this doesn't matter and this doesn't matter. You would want to use it with this. Excuse me. Because why would you do this? You wouldn't. Unless you could go positive on resource gen while spamming core skills, in which case you would do this. But then you don't really care about the activation damage, you just care about this thing. But you don't need to dash to your target against a single target. Can I use this thing existing and following the logical track which says that you would only care about continuing to get the stacks and to deal the bonus bleed damage with them against a single target. And if you couldn't continue to gain stacks, this would be useless. Because you would only have to attack 10 times in 6 seconds. This doesn't count as spending essence, and it wouldn't trigger Undying. Undying triggers on skill cast. You would really only use it with replenishing. Life per second doesn't count as healing. And it's whether or not the healing reads overhealing. God, fuck. So I think it has to be clear that you can gain stacks while it's active. Else that's useless. It uses up it makes it so that Ravager's Bleed can be used on a basic skill build indefinitely. Where you gain a 300% bleed. It's not hard to get healing onto the build. The Spiritborn itself just has roughly 1,000 avenues to apply healing. Can you even heal? Can you even heal 4 times like in between each? You can't. You can't even heal that much. Can you heal 4 times per attack when the attack eats 4 stacks? Oh, it says that it triggers 4 additional strikes. So you just need those strikes to heal you. So we need to mechanically understand what strikes do and do not do in the game. So let's assume you can heal and that it reads overhealing, and you can heal 4 times between attacks at your maximum attack speed on a basic build, and that you're using this on a basic build. And the benefit is applying 5 bleeds per attack. Is that worth an aspect slot when you have to use a 2-handed weapon? I believe the answer is no. So this either creates some kind of interesting proc build I can't think of right now. X-Falls? X-Falls? Because it should apply 5 instances of bleed. X-Falls? No, X Falls hits the primary target. X Falls does an explosion centered on the target. Is that a fix? Nope, it's always worked like that, always. X Falls was the only reason why Infinimus did damage last season. X Falls has always dealt its damage to the target that it triggers off of. Well, I'm just trying to figure out why you would do this and why you would use it. I think my initial feeling is pretty valid. That seemingly implies a way to permanently have this bonus that might enable an X-Falls build. I can't quite understand how it all works. Like, I get this, but it really doesn't matter. It's kind of like, that's like my initial thing. It's like, oh, you'll permanently have Ravager, meaning that you'll permanently be doing this extra strike damage. Okay. Do I think a skill slot is worth saying, like, this combination of things, like, have more base attack speed, apply a bleed, and then, like, your core skills become mobility? Maybe. But the class is already so hyper-mobile, so, like, that doesn't matter. The Vigor Gen is interesting. But it's, like, this thing that seems the most interesting. So that this does enough damage. But then it's like, okay, so the skill says, against a single target for 6 seconds, I do extra bleed damage, and I have a 20-second cooldown, which obviously you can manage the cooldown. So the idea is that you would have permanent uptime. This doesn't help you get there, except in AoE, but in AoE you would use a stronger ability. So, like, this seems like the payoff. This seems like maybe nice to have in the early game. But then if this is the payoff, you're telling me I can't get a skill that says, like, for 6 seconds do greater than 5 instances of damage over time? Would this be good with Stinger? I think that there are better lucky hit chance ways of doing poison damage. Like, this lucky hit chance is pretty trash. The only reason why this one is good enough is because its lucky hit chance is kind of high, but it has 5 damage instances, which is what makes me think about X-Falls. I think you could definitely do a poison damage over time application with this, for sure. Could it be combined with Umbral? Umbral just doesn't work on bosses. So, like, the major, like, I don't think that this thing is a great AoE tool, but you can use it for AoE. That's what the enhancement kind of says. Except that I don't think it really is that particularly good for AoE. But could you use it for essence management on Umbral? Like, you already have stuff like Vortex that you can have, like, permanent uptime on. I don't know. I don't know. It seems niche. My major fear right now is that there's so many cool things that you can do, but already I think that there are skills which are just like need to use on builds, and this doesn't seem like it's as strong as the other things you could be doing. Like, this thing doesn't seem to empower the thing that it presumably does. And breaking it for single target damage is what seems like very good. But then I don't think that, like, worrying about its, like, cooldown reduction is really a thing? I don't know. It's hard to imagine this throughout the life cycle of the class without being able to experience it. Because not everything is just endgame. Like, this is obviously very good in the early game. Your core skills now all give you more mobility and help with essence management. Seems like pretty good for something that's going to be giving you attack speed, which is something that is in short supply in the early game. And this helps you in doing content that will typically get you gear, which is like Helltide. So like that all makes sense to me. It's the late game application of it where I'm having trouble understanding its value if certain things are not true. Like, I need to better understand what they mean by strikes, how this carries lucky hit chance, does it layer on as a dot, which I haven't really played with bleed before, so I'm not 100% sure how that works. And then I assume you can heal while you're, I assume you can get stacks while you're spending them. Does it read overhealing? Do I need a thing that says that overhealing does something to be able to activate whether or not it can read healing? This thing is just like kind of a big enigma to me. Replenishing upgrade. Hattie, thank you very much for the follow. Replenishing upgrade seems like the high damage and high lucky hit chance payoff building into the skill. This begs so many questions about functionality. Questions. Does a strike mean something? Do these strikes count as individual damage instances and layered lucky hit chance procs? What's the point of the skill as a whole, and is it meant for late game / end game? Is it really worth the skill slot? A bad cooldown length with great lucky hit chance. Like a 7 out of 10 focus. Seems hard to fit into a build, but might define an entire build. I don't know, man. It's like, I'm really, my noodle is cooking, trying to figure out what this does. Morgan, thank you for the hydrate. Like, Ravager is probably going to be an entire build. It just depends on how it works. Because it turns out 5 instances of 60% weapon damage over time is like pretty strong. If you can heal 4 times between each attack and go infinite on the cooldown. And it counts as layering lucky hit chance. And then you might have this like insane X-Falls build out of it. Where the enhancement does nothing, which is funny to me. Because I don't think it's even particularly good for AoE. Do you want to know a really good Helltide AoE build? It's just Jaguar. You just Jaguar
you
ultimate.
To a bad content creator.
Why is that still so loud?
You're a real one.
The Spiritborn is cool as hell, but when Frozen Orb? If anybody can make it viable, it's you. Lol.
Morgan, thank you so much for the 2 months. I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you. Spiritborn is cool as hell. Why is this still so goddamn loud? I like turned down volume by 50%. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. The counterattack was insane. Counterattack